There is a serious problem at Chelsea Football Club, and that problem isn't necessarily what's going on the pitch. It's not down to our manager, it's not financial fair play, and it's not even directly to do with our owner, but everything I've just mentioned there does sort of tie in and play a factor, and that problem is Chelsea's ongoing injury crisis. People, what's happening? I'm Joey, this is the Joey Knight podcast, and at the end of this video, if you have enjoyed the content, please do me a massive favour by hitting that subscribe button so that you are in the right place at the right time to see all of the content that I am banging out for you. Anyway, in this video, I want to assess Chelsea's woeful record of recent when it comes to injuries. I want to have a look at why these injuries could potentially be constantly happening, and ultimately, I want to give my view on the whole situation. Now, last week, when we heard that Romeo Lavia had gone down in training with an injury, you, me, and every other Chelsea fan thought the exact same thing. Not this shit again. And Romeo Lavia's injury adds him to a not-so-exclusive list that includes Armando Broja, Bettinelli, Christopher Nkunku, Reece James, Wesley Fofana, Trevor Chalobah, and Carney Chukwuemeka. And look, Bettinelli is very unlikely to ever get a game, I understand that, but if you look at Romeo Lavia's injury now, it adds him to a list of, what, 6, 7 first-team players, all of which you could see in that lineup at some point, and probably, what, 2 or 3 of which are definitely first-team starters for Mauricio Pochettino. But this is not a problem that has only reared its ugly head this season. This is a problem which runs a hell of a lot deeper. So if we cast our minds back now to our Champions League winning side against Manchester City in 2021, as you can see on screen now, here is the first 11. And the first thing that you'll notice from looking at it is it's a pretty much full strength 11. There's no one notable that is out of that side because Chelsea went into that, the last match of the 2020-21 season, without one notable injury. But then we think about this season just gone, and listen, it's a season that all of us want to forget as soon as possible. But in the last day of the season, we went into a match at Stamford Bridge against Newcastle, and I'm going to have to look at my screen here because there's so many. Here's the injury list we had, right? So missing that game, we had Chilwell, Broja, Mount, Cucurella, Reece James, Kante, Kovacic, Badia, Schill. Barring Cucurella, that's pretty much half of the first team out injured, isn't it? And this trend of having half of the first team out injured is nothing new. So for me, it all started in Tuchel's first season. He had just won the Champions League and we were riding high. But that season, we crippled by injuries. We ranked first in the Premier League for players injured and also for days missed. I think there was 1,015 days missed if you combined in total the amount of days missed by each individual player. And actually, in that season, we had players, if you combine it all, missing 188 games of football. And as I say, this had a huge impact on our season because before a ball was kicked, the bookies actually had us as, I think, second favourites. We might have even been joint favourites, you know. And obviously the season started really well. We were top of the table after 14 games with Man City and Liverpool trailing us. But around that 14-game mark, we had notable injuries to both Reece James and Ben Chilwell. And then when them two came out of the first 11, our form plummeted, you know. We really fell off after that. And do you know what? The way things are going at the minute, the way we were playing then, I'd have probably taken that right now. But actually, we fell down from first to third, eventually finishing 19 points behind Man City, who were obviously crowned champions that season. And it weren't just James and Chilwell. We had loads of players injured that season. But most notably, we obviously had Kante having a long period on the sidelines, Kovacic the same. And in the midst of this ongoing injury crisis, Chelsea were obviously hit by another crisis after our owner, Roman Abramovich, was sanctioned by the UK government following the war in Ukraine and therefore having to relinquish his role as club owner. And now here's where it gets interesting. Todd Boehly comes in, he launches an urgent review into the club's medical department and sacks both head physio and the club's medical director, who have been working there for, I think it was 17 years and 11 years respectively. And a lot of the moves that Todd Boehly has made since coming into our club have been seen as reckless, but this was a move that I was not quick to jump the gun and brand as reckless because our record with injuries have been awful. And it's actually funny because a lot of people that I speak to about Chelsea's injury crisis don't know this even happened, and I can forgive them because this happened at the same time as obviously all the media coverage of the takeover happening. Obviously Granit left at that time, Peter Cech left at that time, and Thomas Tuchel not too long after was sacked by the club. So obviously their departures and sackings in the club that are going to warrant a lot more headlines than the physio and the medical director being sacked. So yeah, new people are brought in to run the medical department and things are looking bright for the 22-23 season because let's be honest, it can't get any fucking worse when it comes to injuries, can it? No, it can, because the 22-23 season saw us top the Premier League table again when it comes to injuries. Right, that's a slight white lie because technically Liverpool actually had more individual injuries than Chelsea, but Chelsea ranked a hell of a lot higher than Liverpool when it comes to days missed from players injured, and that's really what matters, isn't it? How much time the players that are injured are going to be missing. So there was a point last season, I'm going to have to look at the screen again here because I just can't remember all of these off the top of my head, but there was a point last season when we had Reece James, Chilwell, Kante, Loftus-Cheek, Fofana, Silva, Azpilicueta, Mendy, and Broa all out injured at the same time. And that ain't our injury list in total, that's just the amount of players that were all injured at the same time and unavailable, because also you got to add the likes of Pulisic, he was injured, Mount, he was injured, Badiashile, he was injured, so we had a lot more than just those injuries that I've mentioned there. So as you can see, clearly there's a problem at Chelsea when it comes to injuries and also how those injuries are managed. So for what it's worth, and let me just say, I'm not a medical professional, I don't really know anything about recovering from long-term football related injuries and whatnot, but if you lot know a lot more than me, which let's be honest, a lot of the time you do, let me know in the comments because I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, your views on it. Obviously, if there's anyone with a medical background, that'd be very, very interesting. So let me know in the comments. But for what it's worth, here are the reasons why I think that Chelsea just cannot stay injury-free. So the first reason we got to explore is the staff, and rightly so. It's the first place that the finger's going to be pointed. You know, it's their job to help manage these injuries, to get these players back as quick as they can, but giving the right advice to the manager as to when these players will be fit and available and maybe how they should be integrated back into the team. But as I have previously mentioned, Todd Boehly, very shortly into his reign as Chelsea owner, sacked, let me see their names, Thierry Lauren, the head physiotherapist, and the medical director, Dr. Paco Biosca. I'm probably butchering that one, but yeah, they've been at the club for 17 years and 11 years respectively, and I know that every single club at one point or another will have players injured, a lot of them will have big names injured, but before our awful run with injuries began, I always thought we did a really good job of keeping our players fit and available. I mean, one very good example that's just come into my head is Eden Hazard, right? You look at him for Chelsea, he barely missed a game, didn't he? I'm not saying he didn't have an injury here and there, but he was fit and available for selection a lot. Then he makes the move over to Madrid and he is literally glued to the injury table. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that the blame lies with Todd Boehly's staff, but we can't deny that the injury record got worse once he brought them in, if anything. Not only that, but let's look at the signing of Wesley Fofana. We brought him in off the back of a fibular fracture that kept him out for 7 months. Now, signing a man that has only just come back from that sort of layoff is risky. Spending 70 odd million quid on him is even riskier, but I suppose that's a topic for another day. Anyway, it's all good because not only are we going to put him through a really vigorous medical, Boehly's going to fly him out to the USA so that he can see specialists that Todd Boehly trusts and that they can be given the go-ahead and have peace of mind before signing off the move. Anyway, everything goes well, Fofana looks good, and then goes down injured and misses 17 games. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. He comes back in, he looks good again, and then he gets injured and misses another couple of months worth of football. But he comes back. Well, you know, you see where I'm going with this, don't you? He got injured again, didn't he? And then, at the start of this season, he's gone down, injured. Different injury, albeit, but, you know, it's relevant. And now he's out for the whole season. And listen, this is just one isolated case, but when you add it to this growing injury iceberg, it tells you that Boehly's medical team aren't faring a whole lot better than the last lot. Another reason that we could be seeing injuries hamper us so consistently is the fact that we're rushing players back. And notice I say fact there and not possibility, because any Chelsea fan knows that we are rushing all of our star players back from injury. You know, whenever Reece James goes through a little stint on the sidelines, we never really ease him back in. We might give him like 45 or 60 minutes of football or something, and then he comes straight back into the starting lineup. It was the same with Kante when he was here, and I do get it. Like, these players are so important to us, and obviously when results aren't going our way and we aren't playing that well on the pitch, it's very easy to have a simplistic point of view that goes, you know, if we get our star players back on the pitch, we're going to pick up form. But the problem is that the Premier League is the most demanding and physical league in world football, and you can't really expect players who have been laid off on the sidelines to just come back in, hit the ground running, and not pick up any injuries, because it's just not really feasible, you know. I do believe that we're going to have to start easing our players in a lot better than we have done in past, and if results aren't going our way in the meantime, then maybe we're just going to have to drown out the background noise from the fan base and stick to our guns and, you know, really, really carefully ease these players back into the first team. A reason that many people have associated with our poor form recently, but could also very much be tied in with our injuries, is an over-bloated squad. I actually had someone message me earlier when I put this out on my story, and they said, well, more players players equals more injuries. And it's a very simple way to look at it, but that's not necessarily true, because if you look at our squad that won the Champions League, right, we had 27 players in that squad. Right now, we've got 29 players in this squad, and a lot of them are out injured as well. So in terms of who's on the training pitch, it's about the same. So I don't think it's that simple. And I'm not saying that 29 isn't a big squad. I remember Pochettino said he wanted, what was it, 24, 25 players when he first came in. So we've still got one too many in that squad, but I don't think it's necessarily the biggest squad in the world. But remember, this narrative of an over-bloated squad, whether you believe it's true or not, only really dates back to when Todd Bowley took over and started splashing the cash. And our injury concerns date back a whole lot longer than when Todd Bowley had even heard of Chelsea Football Club. What does trouble me about the size of our squad is the pressure it puts on the medical checks and the screening of these players. Now, my assumption would be that the medical staff and most of the staff at Chelsea have set hours. So let's say, for example, to really simplify it, let's say I've got 10 hours, right? And I need to make 5 videos. That gives me 2 hours per video to film something, to get it on the computer, to edit it up. Let's say I've got the same amount of time, but I need to make 10 videos. Well, obviously, the quality of the videos aren't going to be as good because I'm only going to have 1 hour to make, edit, film, all that stuff every single video. Now, let's say I've got that same 10 hours and I've got 29 videos to make. See where I'm going with this, don't you? So the more players we've got, if the medical staff are working set hours and assuming that they haven't maybe brought too many other new faces on board, you would sort of think that maybe when it comes to the screening and the checks and even the recovery, the medical staff are being spread a little bit too thin and aren't being able to give the players the amount of individual attention that they need. And also, just thinking about it, when you add in the factor of how many serious injuries we've got at the moment and have continued to have, that's going to spread the medical staff even thinner. So thinking about it, and this is just my suggestion for what it's worth, maybe we should be spending a little less money on the likes of, I don't know, who's, let's say, Kukurea, maybe, and invest a lot more money into the medical staff. And the last point I am going to raise is just bad luck. Now, people disregard this point, but we can't just rule it out straight away, because let's say a player is ruled out with a hamstring injury, yeah? They come back, they get back on the pitch, straight away they pick up another hamstring injury. Well, then you can definitely say that that's been mismanagement from the medical staff and whoever's advising the manager on how soon that player can return. But if a player comes back from a hamstring injury and then all of a sudden gets on the pitch and breaks his toe or something, you can't really deny that bad luck has then played a massive factor in that. And when you look at some of the injuries we've had, it's not like every injury is a reoccurrent one. A lot of the time, I look at like Wesley Fofana off the top of my head, his injuries have been like knee injury, ligament, they're different injuries in different areas of his body. What I would say when it comes down to luck is it can't be then described as bad luck. It has got to be described as absolutely fucking horrendous luck, because bad luck is what Liverpool had last season, you know? You look at Liverpool last season and pretty much until the last few games where they really put a run together, they had a lot of notable first team players out injured. But then you look at Liverpool and you look at the 2 seasons that sort of sandwiched last season, either side. So far this season, they're looking good. No massive notable injuries, and definitely not a whole load of them. The season before that, I'm not saying they didn't have any injuries, but I'm saying, again, not a notable massive list on the injury list. But if you look at Chelsea, we have been riddled for 3 seasons now. So, like I say, we either have horrendous luck or there is a much more serious underlying factor going on here. Now, I know it's not great for me to wrap up a video by basically saying that I don't know the answer, but let's be honest, if the club don't know the answer, you can hardly expect some fucking YouTuber to know the answer, can you? But for what it's worth, I do genuinely believe that it's a bit of everything I've just covered there, you know? There were clearly problems with the medical staff that seem to keep sort of arising, and, you know, you could say that that stretches back to as far as even Eva Carneiro being sacked. Since our form started to dip sort of halfway through Tuchel's first full season, we have definitely undoubtedly rushed players back, because obviously, like I say, when you took Ben Chilwell and Reece James out that side, there was such a notable drop-off that we were very eager to get them back on the pitch. The squad's been over-bloated at different points to some degree, and obviously, yeah, like I say, shit luck has played a massive part in all of this. But the real question is, does it pick up and do we break the curse? Well, I don't know, again, I can't really give you an answer to that one. But I'll tell you what, you lot try and answer it for me. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and I promise I will try and get back to as many of you as I possibly can. Please do me a massive favour. If you like this sort of content, I'm banging out Chelsea content all the time at the moment. I'm trying to do Premier League bits and pieces as well. I love the interaction I get off you lot. I did actually upload a video on England the other day, and I'm not saying I'm chasing the views, but it absolutely dived, mate. No one watched it. No one was bothered. Probably because I was bigging up Southgate and his lot after they drew 1-1 against the Ukraine. But listen, very, very eager to hear your lot's thoughts. I'm in the studio this week. I'm going to be previewing the game against Bournemouth. And recording another video then, and then I'm back on the kickoff on Sunday after Chelsea's game against Bournemouth. So please, 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 let's hope that I've got something to smile about, because I tell you what, it is absolutely heartbreaking having to sit there and talk about Chelsea when we're not winning games. So I'm really hoping for a good result. I'm very confident the boys will go and get a good result, and Pochettino's reign as Chelsea manager can get into full flow. Like I said, please hit the subscribe button. Also click the bell so that you get notified every single time one of my videos goes live, and I will see you all in the next one.